The moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler and Jim Kaiju Baker. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Get my notes out. I'm ready for JoJo. Okay, here it is. Do you have any news this week?
I do not. I want to get right into this movie.
All right, welcome everybody. We're back.
Welcome. We are back. Woo, for not talking about The Mandalorian, we're talking about the latest movie in the theaters.
Yes, we are. Talking about hopping. We are going back to the...
That was a nice segue.
We're going back to the big band era this week.
Copyright infringement. Benny Goodman, he's going to come knocking on my door. Stop that.
We're going back to the 40s with two different films. They're both tongue-in-cheek takes on World War II and the 1940s. One from the German perspective and one from the American perspective.
A nice pairing.
We do not hold back on the spoilers, generally.
Yes, prepare to be spoiled. So if you've not seen these movies.
But I'm conflicted because I have a feeling that JoJo Rabbit is what we're talking about as our main feature today. It had a very limited release. So I have a feeling that a lot of our listening audience may not have had the opportunity to see this. So even if we tell them to come back after they've seen it, where are they going to see it? Because we had difficulty finding it.
That is true. Yeah, it was rough. By the time we got around, my theater, it was gone.
Yeah,
it played. Yet the Joker is somehow still playing.
Yeah, the Joker's still there. JoJo came and went after a week in my
It is a
major
very,
theater.
very niche movie. The fact that Hitler is a main character in this maybe, I mean, is it too soon to make Hitler Nazi spoof jokes? But that may turn people off. But it shouldn't.
It
by
shouldn't,
any means,
because
this movie is unbelievable.
You know what, Jeff? I'm going to say it now straight up right at the start of our show. I am going to induct this as part of my 5 bucket.
Wow, 5 bucket. It's up there. It is this movie. I have not felt this way about a movie since I saw Pan's Labyrinth. That affected me, not knowing going in what I was in for. Because when you see the trailer, you think you're getting a certain type of movie, and you do for a little bit, and then it becomes something else.
Yeah, it does.
And it really hits you in the feels. I get chills. I'm getting chills. I cried at least twice toward the end of the movie.
It's been only 2 days since I've seen it. It's been 1 day for you.
Yeah,
it feels like I wanted to talk about it as soon as I stepped out of that theater.
Yes. Yeah, like you said, it's hard. I had to go to. We'll talk about our movie going experience because I couldn't go to my Regal. It was no longer playing there, so my Regal Unlimited was worthless. But it's funny that we're almost 90 episodes into this series, and I've never talked about the Jacob Burns Film Center, which is in Pleasantville, New York. It's definitely more than an art house. That's probably about a 5-year window of my life. I spent as much time there as humanly possible. I saw. When they re-released Godzilla, the 50th anniversary, the Japanese version without Raymond Burr and all that other crap.
Yes.
I saw that there. I met Chris Wedge, who was the director of Ice Age. He was working at Blue Sky Animation, and they would have this series directors in their favorite movies. And he was screening the Errol Flynn Adventures of Robin Hood. And then they did a little Q&A after the fact. I took
which is one of your 5 bucket picks.
It is one of my 5 bucket movies. And when you watch that, you see a lot of influences that Star Wars took from it. I took my daughter and my nephew to a screening of Monster House, and the cast was there doing a Q&A afterwards. Skylar actually took classes for stop motion animation and special effects. What they've done is they've bought up a couple of the industrial buildings around them, and they turned them into media centers. So these kids go to these classes. She was really big, and do you remember Sci-Fi Channel had Face Off? It was like the special effects competition.
Yes. Yep.
She was really into that, and so this was a special effects class. It was like a 2-week class that she went to and learned makeup, prosthetics, and stuff like that. They'll do animation media things with these kids, and then have a red carpet affair where the kids all come with their family. And then they show the movies that they made on the big screen.
Oh,
so
nice.
It's really it's a phenomenal theater, and it's just a very family oriented environment, and this is where I had to go to see JoJo. And it was fitting because
tell me, is it a large theater, small theater? What's
it is.
like the
It
size
is
of the
large.
venue?
There's probably about 6 or 7 different screens. So
Really?
they do a lot of. I remember. I want to say at one point they did Metropolis, which was what 1927,
Yeah.
silent movie, but they had a live orchestra.
Really?
I did not get to partake in that, but like stupid stuff like that. That just, it's just like the love of cinema that they're pouring back into this place. And it's funny because I mentioned Pan's Labyrinth. I saw Pan's Labyrinth in this theater. JoJo Rabbit fits perfectly in this kind of art house environment.
Gotcha. Now, how many people, were there a lot of people in the theater?
I actually it was a 12 o'clock screening, and there was a fair amount of people in there. And you know what's funny is that initially I thought this movie had a laugh track, because you were getting like these little muffled laughs. And I think people were uncomfortable when the movie started. Should I be laughing at this? Because Hitler is, like I said, Hitler is a character. He's a large in charge character, and he's outrageous. But I think as the movie went along, people got more into it. And, by the end, every time he showed up on screen, he's like Kramer on Seinfeld. People were cheering the minute he shows up on screen. But initially it was kind of like this reluctant giggles. And like I said, I was like, is this thing got like a laugh track? Because it was just off-putting enough. And then I realized it's the audience. I can't say enough good things about this movie.
Yeah, it's true. And let me go into my movie-going experience as well.
Yes, you said you had a little bit of a unique.
Yes, it was. And now, again, Same thing. My local Regal played this for about 2 weeks. And then by the time we were getting around to cover it, of course, it was gone. So
right.
I missed it by about a day. My window was closed. So I was panicking. Like, how are we going to talk about this if I can't see this movie?
If you can't see it, right.
So did a search online for any theaters in my area that were playing this thing. And it's playing still at one theater, and it will be at least throughout the Thanksgiving holiday, if anybody's in the area that's listening to this. The Downing Film Center, which is located in Newburgh, New York, on the waterfront on Front Street. Right across from, I think it's called Billy Bob's Barbecue. It's
get a little barbecue after the fact.
So it's a theater right on that Front Street facing, and there's all these restaurants there. And I saw it at 2:00 on the day that it was opening on a Friday and on a matinee. There was only 2 other people in the theater, not counting the proprietors, who were also watching the movie because it was the first time that they were showing it.
Watching it, yeah.
So now this is such a unique and such an intimate experience because the Downing Film Center, again, it's a pretty nondescript building that it's in. It looks like an office building, and the only thing that gives it away is the movie poster that's next to the door. So you go in, and they share their space with, it looks like, an architect's. You go downstairs as soon as you go through the door, and it's like going into the basement of this building, and you get to the bottom of the stairs. There's your concession stand, and there's your ticket counter. And Brian and Sharon Burke, the nicest people that you'd ever want to meet. Thankfully, it wasn't busy because I got a chance to talk to them. I got there about 20 minutes before the movie started, just going on about movies. And we're talking about Parasite, which was the movie that was playing immediately before JoJo Rabbit last week. Same Korean director who did The Host, which someday that we'll cover.
Yes. Oh, we would need to talk about that.
And I'm looking around. I'm remembering I've only been to this theater once before to see The Reader with Kate Winslet, another World War II movie, back in 2008. And I'm thinking, why has it taken me so long to come back here? Because when you go into the theater, it's like the world's best man cave. It's not a traditional theater. They've renovated the basement of this building. So you go into the theater, and what it is probably 30, 40 easy chairs that they have set up.
Oh, wow.
The most comfortable chair that you can imagine sitting in.
You didn't fall asleep though, right?
That you just kind of slink back in and out. I'm already armed with hot popcorn that they're popping right on premises. I've got a natural root beer, like in the glass bottle in my other hand, and I am ready.
Wow.
And again, there was only 2 other people, single viewers, that were sitting there. There was tons of room around us. The screen was probably maybe half of the size of a small screen that you would get.
But it's a smaller room.
It's a smaller room, but it's a
closer.
digital. It's a clean digital picture.
Wow.
It's not a traditional film projector from behind. It's a digital presentation of this film. So it was wonderful. And you know what actually added to the ambiance was they're right next to the train tracks on the Newburgh waterfront. So every once in a while, you got the rumbling of the train going by.
Oh, really? Oh, geez.
But it was not overpowering. It was just this. So it really
You
felt
actually
like
thought your
you
Barca Lounger had a vibrate mode?
Yeah, it was such a great experience. And I had such a good time talking to Brian and Sharon just about movies in general.
I was going to say, how many minutes into your conversation before you dropped the fact that you have a podcast?
It was towards the end. I wanted to bring that up naturally. So Brian,
how can I work this into a conversation?
So Brian very nicely took our name down, and he said he would listen. So if you're listening out there, Brian,
nice.
Thank you for tuning in to us.
Nice. Yes,
thank
you.
So that was my movie going experience as well.
Awesome.
A great time looking. And again, I couldn't have thought of a better place to see this movie in this particular movie. So let's get into it.
Because it is such a unique and niche-y kind of a movie that you're kind of forced to go to these art houses, but we should be frequenting them more often.
Now, first of all, this is directed by Taika Waititi,
who also plays Hitler.
Now,
and he directed in the Hitler costume.
So how could he not? Because he's
I know,
on
right?
Because
he's in it. Yeah.
So Taika is, of course, the director of Thor Ragnarok, which is in my top 3 Marvel movies, hands down. And if you've listened to the commentary of that, if you're that much of a nerd as we are, looking at the bonus features, his humor just hits the sweet spot of this show. And Jeff, I don't know if you've ever seen his movie What We Do in the Shadows, which is kind of like a documentary, real world type thing, but about vampires.
Right, the TV show.
He did a movie in New Zealand.
He did the movie
and
first.
The TV show is based on
I have
the
not,
movie.
but I've heard nothing but great things about it. I might have to go dig it up.
It's so funny. The premise of this movie is such that we are in World War II Germany, and at the very end of the war, Germany is about to be defeated by the Allies, and they're in denial of the fact. We're following a character by the name of Johannes Betzler, is his actual name, and he is nicknamed JoJo Rabbit. He is a member of Hitler Youth, and in the beginning of the movie, he is off at a Hitler Youth training camp.
Yeah, which is it's sad in the sense that this is really what these kids were being indoctrinated into. I mean, it's they were taught that Jews were like these horned devils that just took human guises and that they could control your mind and do all that other crap. And this kid is completely on board. He is Team Hitler. He's got the posters on his wall. He's his mother is kind of, it's a phase. He'll outgrow it.
Now this is where Hitler himself comes in, because he has an imaginary friend in Hitler himself. As you were saying, in the opening scenes of this movie, you're kind of feeling out the movie, just like your audience was, thinking, okay, should this be funny?
Yes, correct.
Should I be laughing at this? Should this movie exist? Is this the material of a comedy? But as you get into it, you realize, especially those scenes opening with JoJo at this camp, they're obviously sending up the fact that the Nazi ideology was so ridiculous and so patently wrong. They're making fun of this ideology.
Correct. Yeah.
They're not getting on board with it by any means.
Yeah.
And the fact that JoJo himself, the reason that they name him JoJo Rabbit is because these truly evil teenagers that are kind of overseeing this squadron of little elementary school kids are teaching them to kill. And one of them sees that JoJo is not really 100% on board with what they're saying.
Yeah, he's once he's ingrained in this, he's kind of looking back like, what the hell did I get myself into?
Yeah.
And so he's a little off put, and they seize on that, and they try to get him to kill a rabbit, and he wouldn't do it.
He wouldn't do it. He actually tries to get the rabbit to run away.
JoJo, it's a bunny. JoJo's a rabbit. Little JoJo Rabbit, run away. Runs off into the woods, and then Hitler kind of like rallies him, gets him to stand up for himself. He's like, you need to stand up for yourself, and this is not what a German soldier is good. You want to be part of my Reich. And so then JoJo comes back charging.
So he's got the idea in his head that he wants to make an impression on this camp and redeem himself after this whole rabbit fiasco. Sam Rockwell brilliantly played.
Can this guy he can do no wrong. He is a national treasure. He is
Captain
perfect in everything he does. Captain K, they call him.
You're laughing with him and at him at the same time, because he is there at this Hitler Youth camp because he's had one of his eyes shot out. And so he's blind in one eye. So the German army has considered him useless to the battlefield. So they've relegated him to this.
You refer to it as
youth
Operation Screw Up. Listen, once they broke into the opening sequence and they're playing the Beatles, I Want to Hold Your Hand, but in German, and they really recorded in German.
Yeah. I've got one of their CDs is like
I did look it up, and I'm like, there was like
yeah.
3 or 4 songs that they
recorded in German for the German audience. Yeah,
and you're like, here we go, man. Like the soundtrack is very interesting. Some of the choices, and we'll get into especially the closing one.
So JoJo, in order to redeem himself, photobombs, for lack of a better term.
Yes.
A session that Sam Rockwell is having with the kids. He's teaching them how to throw a grenade. So he's got the grenade in his hand. JoJo comes running up from behind him, grabs the grenade, and thinks, okay, he's going to make an impression.
And you got Hitler right beside him, like rah-rah cheerleader, which is so over the top. But it doesn't end well.
Yeah, he pulls the pin on the grenade, throws it slow motion. It's going to be a victory moment for him. Bounces off a tree and lands back at his feet and explodes. You see him like flying like a rag doll. And the next thing you see is his point of view on a gurney going into the hospital. Sam Rockwell's looking at him with one blind eye. Rebel Wilson, who's there, who plays a miserable Fräulein, who is completely who says she's had 18 children.
I've had 18 kids to Germany. And let's talk about the fact that everyone in this movie, and it is star-studded, they're all doing German accent. So it was kind of interesting.
Except for the one kid that's friends with JoJo.
Oh, Yoki?
Who looks like Harry Potter, who pretty much is Harry Potter. In a Nazi uniform.
And you're right. He did not have a German accent.
No. So JoJo is scarred from this grenade blast, and he has a permanent limp as well. So he's got Darth Vader type scars on his face from this grenade blast.
And his leg.
He can't be a member of the army anymore. And also Sam Rockwell has gotten in further trouble for this happening under his watch.
Right.
So he's now even he's downgraded again to the propaganda department. So now he's in charge of these kids that have to go around and spread pamphlets.
And I love the fact that all of the propaganda, the flyers and the posters, like nothing's translated. It's all in German. You're left on your own device to figure out what it says. Does it even matter? I guess you know what it says. But now, I did like that they didn't go out of their way to translate.
Now, you mentioned the whole sequence with the Beatles singing I Want to Hold Your Hand in German. They're intercutting that with footage of Germans from newsreels screaming for Hitler as if it was Beatlemania.
Yes, you're right. Yeah.
Now, so this is where it finally became okay for me to laugh at this movie, because I think it really sets up, especially that scene, that this is presented through the eyes of a child who doesn't know better.
Yes.
And who is missing his father, who the German army pretty much has considered as deserter.
A deserter.
Because he's gone abroad and they've never heard from him again. So he has no father figure, and he's invented this imaginary Hitler who is like a rah-rah kind of a character.
Right.
And he's
like I said,
using him as a father.
Yeah, he's the one who got him, be the rabbit. That's what gets JoJo, back on his feet after the...
So Taika, in his performance as Hitler, is not portraying the actual Hitler, nor is he trying to. So all these criticisms that this is historically inaccurate are just worthless, because this is Hitler through the eyes of this 10-year-old kid.
Who worships him.
Who is idealistically, as you said, looking to him for guidance. And that's what this Hitler, as an imaginary character, is offering this kid. And
he's hysterical because the stuff that comes out of his mouth is just brilliant. And like I said, early on, the audience, it takes a bit for you to just kind of get comfortable with this character. But by the end, he was Kramer. Every time he showed up, the audience went nuts, because every time he would come in, then they're like, oh, he's going to say something outrageous again.
Right.
So then it became okay for
so obviously we know that Hitler was not a funny character. Hitler historically was reprehensible. And
so this is a spoof, right?
Yeah. That whole Beatles thing kind of really nailed that point home, that this is what the youth of Germany were looking towards, that they had this candy-coated, idealistic, the concentration camps are never really mentioned here.
No.
Because they were being, maybe because JoJo didn't know about them, or, who knows? That again, it's seen through his eyes. This is what this movie is. So once you realize that, it's more palatable, I think, to laugh
Right, but like I said, it's sad because you see they're teaching these kids that Jews are not human, that they're these evil satanic monsters. And at one point they even said that, do you hear that Hitler only has one ball? No, he has four. And at one point Hitler even has a unicorn. I gotta go home. We're having unicorn for dinner tonight. Just silly, over the top stuff. But boy, it's just the first half hour or so is really kind of whimsical, and then it gets serious.
Now, we know from the get-go, from that whole rabbit scene, that JoJo really does not have his heart in this Nazi propaganda. He thinks he does from what he's being told, right, but we know that he's not like the other kids. As we get into it, we kind of see why, because his mother, played by Scarlett Johansson, brilliantly.
Yes.
She's great in this part. Yep. You could not imagine, after seeing her in this, you can't imagine anybody else.
No, Rosie. Yeah, was his mom.
So his mom is single because the dad is gone. She doesn't really mention him much, the father. You can tell from the get-go that she is questioning the Nazi government. And then as the movie goes on a little bit, you realize that she is a full-on supporter of the Allies. Flyers. And so she is so much so in this anti-war effort that one day when she's out, JoJo is in his sister's room, and you learn a little bit later that his sister, who is a little bit older, Inga, I think her name was.
I don't remember the sister's name.
But she died of influenza at some point. Yeah. So her room is still meticulously intact with her pictures and everything else, her bedroom. And JoJo is in this room one day when he's in the house alone. He happens to just see an inconsistency in the floor and in the wall. So he does a little bit of digging with his Hitler Youth knife, and he sees that there's a partition in the wall that he can open, and he does so. And what does he find but an Anne Frank-esque kind of hollow behind the wall where somebody has obviously been living. There's a mattress, there's a candle, there's some papers, there's some
baby
books,
dolls, yeah.
There's baby dolls.
A lamp.
He crawls in and he finds the occupant of this space. There is a teenage girl that's living in the walls of
in
his
his
house.
Walls, yeah.
Yeah.
Elsa was her name.
A Jewish girl that his mother, Rosie, is that she knows about and that she's giving food to. So she's harboring, I don't know if you've seen Handmaid's Tale, Jeff. There are scenes in that where anybody that's working against the government that's caught is hung in public display. So you see that early on in JoJo Rabbit. Anybody that's anti-German or anti-Nazi, right, is hung in public. So you know that the ramifications are deadly for doing this, but yet she's doing it anyway because she believes so much.
And he's horrified. He's horrified because this is kind of everything that he's against. Like I said, he's Team Hitler.
He talks to this girl saying that he's going to call her in. He's going to call the authorities.
Yeah, and he realizes.
He soon realizes that if he does so, he's going to get his mother killed. So he can't say anything. And he calls it a Mexican stalemate. And she's like, she's like, why is it Mexican? It's just a stalemate.
Right.
So we get into this section of the movie where he is becoming friendlier and friendlier with this girl. At first, he's gleaning information from her, like, is it true that Jews have scales? Oh, yes, we do. Right, yeah. So she's totally feeding into it.
Draw me a picture. And she draws a picture of him. He goes, you just drew a picture of my head. I want to know where Jews live. And she goes, that's where they live. Which I thought was profound because what she's saying, they're feeding you this propaganda. They're feeding you this idea of who and what we are. It's all in your head. So, yeah. But yeah, the relationship between these, now she's a couple years older. It's very obvious that he's taken a liking to her. And the relationship between these two characters does not go well with Hitler. He does not like this.
No.
He becomes jealous.
Yeah, more so because she's taking up the time that JoJo had previously given to Hitler. So he's jealous of this. It's funny because it can be seen not only as he moving away from the imaginary friend, but he's moving away from the Nazi party. And that's
Yeah. And that's kind of scary. And the reason he has all this time on his hands is because they tell him he's going to take a month off from school because his face might scare the other kids. So that's why he's home a lot.
And when he's not home, he's out delivering propaganda pamphlets.
Yep. Yeah, he's doing those pamphlets.
Or pulling along a wagon asking for metal from
that was the Medal for Hitler. Yeah, collecting for the war effort. And he's a little robot. He's dressed like a little robot. There's that silly little thing at one point where Captain K requests German Shepherds. And they bring in real people like shepherds.
Now that got the biggest laugh, I think.
Right, because then he says, that's a stupid name for a dog. Silly name for a dog. So the house invasion scene is about as intense as you get.
It is. So JoJo and Elsa, their relationship really grows over the course of this movie. And Elsa mentions to him at one point that she has a fiance by the name of Nathan. And so they bond because JoJo at first writes her a letter, a fake letter from Nathan, saying that he has gotten fat. He's met another girl.
Right. I don't want to marry you anymore.
Because he hates Elsa at first because that's what he thinks he should be doing.
Right.
So in order to get her upset, because he can't tell on her because he's going to get his mom in trouble, he's trying to get into her head and to make her sad. So he writes this fake letter from her fiance, Nathan, from abroad to try to, and Elsa of course
somehow
knows,
magically, I was going to say, magically knows where she's hiding.
Yeah, she knows exactly what he's doing. But she's still affected by it. You see her crying as
because he was mean. He was being mean. And that's an interesting thing, which is he never tells his mom that he knows that she's in the attic. And Elsa never reveals to the mom that she's come out and interacted with JoJo in any way, shape, or form, because the mom is constantly saying, if JoJo finds you, he's going to lose his mind.
And that you're going to have to leave if JoJo finds you. Because if I have to choose between my son and you, it's going to be my son.
But she was so well, like you could see like her world was kind of like she was always drinking wine and she was always kind of like on edge, but she was always trying to put on like that fake mom happy face kind of a thing.
Right.
And there's a scene where they're eating dinner and she's talking to him about the war and he's adamant that the Nazis are going to win, and it's a very uncomfortable scene. And of course the dad being missing comes up and she goes to the fire, she throws on his one of his war jacket, and then she goes to the fireplace and she smothers ash to make it look like a beard, and then she starts acting like the dad, and it was a very awkward, uncomfortable scene, but it really showed you like how much his character was repressing, and trying to just keep her world together.
And that's where all his anger about her harboring this person in the wall comes out. So all the feelings that they had repressed up until that point come out in that scene. It's a great scene.
Yeah.
But as the time goes on, the letters change. He's still writing letters as Nathan, but they're changing in tone. He feels bad that he made her feel sad with that first letter, does JoJo. So he starts to write sympathetic, like love letters from Nathan almost, but he's writing them from his heart. So he's falling for her over time. And his distance from Hitler is growing and growing and growing. And the interesting thing is, as the movie progresses, Hitler's attitude becomes more and more scary as the movie nears its end.
Because he's losing control of this kid.
And because JoJo is now seeing Hitler for what he is, a monster.
Yeah.
So he's
I don't want it to be weird between us. It's weird between us, right? Right?
Yeah.
It's weird. He's curled up in the kid's bed.
So that's why in the very beginning stages, it's like this rah, go get him kind of a character. And towards the end, he's yelling at him constantly in the same way, because you could tell Waititi probably studied the newsreels of Hitler's speeches. He's doing the same inflections and everything else as he's yelling at JoJo. So I think it was a brilliant way of showing the progression of the character of JoJo from just being brainwashed into having his own thoughts and realizing that this is wrong. This ideology is wrong.
Another thing, which is from a cinematic point of view, was very interesting. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. This entire movie is shot at a 45-degree angle.
Really?
Everything is off kiltered. And JoJo was always at the bottom end of the angle. And as the movie goes on, it kind of, by the time you get to the end of the movie, everything is upright. And I have to do a little more research into his mindset on that, but it was so obvious. And once you see it, like it's in every shot. It's not like just I shot an angle at one point and then we move on. It was consistent from the beginning of this movie until the end, and then it slowly tilts.
I had no idea.
So that was really, to me, a very interesting choice. You're subtly, the mom is the righteous one on the top. And whenever he's having these conversations with Elsa, she's up on top, he's down at the bottom.
Jeff, I did say at the beginning that I didn't want to spoil this, but it's killing me to not talk about some of these certain plot points. But I don't know. Do we want to get into the Scarlett Johansson?
We have to, because that's the catalyst.
Yeah.
For where this character goes, where his life leads him.
Now, you did mention that the Gestapo at one point come into JoJo's house and do a
Yes,
routine
and it's
search.
just the creepy ass, guys in black, and they're all Hi Hitler. There's a running joke where they all have to say Hi Hitler to each
Because
other.
there's 6 guys, right? But they
Right.
all have to say it like
Hi
in
Hitler, Hi
tandem.
Hitler,
Yeah.
Hi Hitler, Heil Hitler. Yeah, and this scene is just, JoJo lets him in. Oh, is your mom always busy? Is she always not? Is she not home? So you already know that they're kind of just randomly going house to house, but they probably have something on her, and they're going through papers or everything. And of course, Elsa's upstairs. She had just taken a shower. She had her bath.
So their relationship has progressed so much at this point that she's mentioned something that she feels dirty because she's been in this wall for
And that's where she
who
stays.
knows how long.
Yep.
Yeah. So he gets her out and he's like, fine, come out, take a bath, and you feel like a human again. And she's in the bath when the Gestapo comes and pounds on the door. So he's flipping out because as far as he knows, she's outside of the hole upstairs. And as they're walking around, she just comes out of the room and poses as his sister.
Which is just like you see the sheer terror on his face, and you can tell that she's got just as much fear because she knows what the ramifications are.
Now,
they figured this out.
And coincidentally, Sam Rockwell's character had come in the house just seconds before, because then he's got JoJo's bike with him. Oh, you forgot your bikers,
right?
That's why he's
flyers
there.
Or something. Yeah.
Then he sees these Gestapo, and he figures he probably better stay because he realizes JoJo is here by himself, and his character kind of abets them, which is a great thing because now you realize that he's no longer down with this Nazi party either.
Yeah. Well, like you said from the beginning, they realize that the end is coming. They're just all in denial. Yeah, this scene unfolds, and it is just you're holding your breath because then they want to see her papers, and she's floundering around, and she does find her papers.
The sister's papers.
The sister's papers, yeah, not hers because she's Jewish. Sam Rockwell's character takes it and he starts quizzing her on what's your birthday, and she rattles off and he goes correct, and he hands it back to her because this girl's now kind of making her way through the house, so she maybe was able to kind of look through some of this stuff, and you're like, she averted it, and then you realize after the fact that she got it wrong and he lied.
Yeah,
he lied to them.
Very soon after that, JoJo is outside. He goes through the courtyard of the town that they live in, and you don't see her, but you recognize the shoes. There's a running joke in the movie that they'd set up that JoJo doesn't know how to tie his shoes. So she's constantly bending down to tie his shoes. And you often see her shoes in the shot as she's doing it. So you know what her shoes look like. And you see her feet dangling there in the public hanging display. The Free Germany pamphlet that she was secretly passing out is pinned to her pant leg. And there's that's, I'm sure, Jeff, this is one of the scenes that you cried at because I was watering up as well. He hugs her legs and he ties her shoe because her shoelace is untied.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it.
Yeah.
To me, Waititi, to me, he's almost like the new Wes Anderson. Like he's just got this weird sensibility about him.
Yeah, the first 15 minutes of this was very much like a Wes Anderson movie.
But then it just, so now he realizes that his mom is dead, they hang her, and he's all alone. But what they do is they cut to the houses overlooking the courtyard, and the way that the houses are built, you've got these little window insets that look like half closed eyes, so all of the shots look like the houses were staring down at him, and it was just a quick little 4 or 5 houses that they just kind of kept shooting to, that like all of Germany is now staring at him. And it was a really like profound moment that, it was the tying the shoes was like, let's pull on the heartstrings a little bit more. Mm-hmm. But it earns it. It's not a forced manipulation of your emotions by any means. This is all just natural progression of this kid is now without any parents.
And now you had mentioned before that the whole Gestapo scene, once you know that what's happened to Rosie's character, you kind of think to yourself, well, why aren't they coming for him too? Right. They obviously know who this is and where she lives.
Because he is kind of revealing in these little snippets, because early on when he first starts talking to Elsa, he would go to Captain K and you'd be like, well, how would I know if I ever met a Jew? Or what would I do if I met a Jew? Who would I tell? So he's laying the groundwork, and of course I think Rockwell's character puts 2 and 2 together when he's in that scene, and he realizes that this girl is not who she claims to be.
Right. So then this brings us up to the climax of the movie, which are the final days of Hitler's Berlin. At the very end, the Allies invade. So the Germans are so ill-prepared at this point. Hitler's already killed himself. We get a little bit of exposition that Hitler's gone. And the Germans are so desperate, they're arming the kids from the Hitler youth camps.
including his buddy Yoki,
including the German Harry Potter,
the little fat Harry Potter.
So he's got weaponry, and the Rebel Wilson is just like giving the kids like bombs and telling them to run into the
machine guns,
which is terrible.
And I'm sure that happened.
And you see the German shepherds again, the actual shepherds who are German.
Shepherds, yep.
And so they're arming old people, they're arming women, and
the entire cast parades past him in this epic battle that's just unfolding around him. He's just standing in the courtyard, just an unwitting participant in this. And you do notice that Hitler has abandoned him at this point. You don't see Hitler in this scene at all. And this kid is he's on a run for his life. Bombs are going off. People are getting exploded. Rebel Wilson comes around the corner and immediately gets blown apart. It's chaos.
But at one point, and this is important, I think it's Rebel Wilson that puts an army jacket on him.
Yes.
Like as she's arming all the other kids. She gets blown up and he's stuck with this army jacket on. He turns the corner and there's Sam Rockwell, who has been captured by the Allies. So he's sitting there with a bunch of other Germans, and one of the Russian soldiers grabs JoJo and throws him down next to Sam Rockwell. Rockwell gives him a few final words, and in order to save him, starts yelling at him that he's a Jew, and
takes the jacket off, rips
takes
the jacket off,
tells him to run.
Spitting at him, get this Jew away from me. And of course, the soldiers immediately come in and start beating the crap out of him. The kid's crying. He's like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Yeah. No. And they drag him like, get out of here, kid. And he saves him. Then you immediately hear him get shot. Yeah. That was full on welling up. I got really emotional at that scene because that character was very redeemable. It was very moving.
So this brings us right to the end. So the Allies have come in. Germany has lost the war. JoJo goes back home, and Elsa is still in the wall.
Yeah, what's happening? What happened?
She's hearing all these explosions. She's like, what happened? Who won? He says Germany because he doesn't want her to leave.
He lied to her because he wanted her to stay. Because he knows that, because he says, what happens if you're ever free? And she said, I'm going to go far away. But she was supposed to meet Nathan in Paris, right? At some point, she did make mention that when I am free, I will dance. And that's exactly what she does. So he lies to her, but then she realizes pretty quickly. He says, but Nathan and I have devised a plan to get you out. So he's trying to be the hero. And the final letter is like, don't worry about your friend JoJo. He'll be okay. And then she admits to him that Nathan is dead. Nathan had died, and that she knew all along that he'd been writing these letters. And he even says, well, who's writing these letters then? And she's like, you. And he does tell Hitler to go F himself because Hitler's not too happy. And did you notice when Hitler does come back, he's got a wound in his head.
A bandage over his head. And he does, JoJo gives him one awesome front kick out the window. So
and he does give him an FU, and out he goes.
Actually, the most emotional scene in this movie for me was the final scene when he and Elsa walk outside. He hasn't told her yet that the Allies have won. So
she still thinks that it's occupied. Yeah.
They walk outside. She sees the American flag drive by and American soldiers. So her first reaction is to slap JoJo for lying. But once she does that, they're even. So
and he even says, I deserve that.
Yeah. And so what do? As soon as she realizes that she's free, they start to dance. Not only does they start to dance, but to the strain of David Bowie's Heroes. So again, sung in German. So he had recorded a German version because he recorded that song famously in Berlin in a studio right by the Berlin Wall. So,
but isn't what the song is about? Is about these two lovers separated by the wall?
Standing by the Berlin Wall, that are separate, So that's what the song is about. So that just gives that extra emotion to the scene. If you knew what that song is really about.
Right, yeah. No, that's it. Such a great movie. My audience cheered when the credits rolled.
Yeah, there weren't enough people, I think. You're still in that uncomfortable, am I going to cheer by myself? Or
Right, exactly.
But I remember, I was walking out of the theater after the movie was over, and I was talking to Sharon, who is one of the proprietors there, and she just said, that was one of the greatest things I've ever seen. So I told her I'm a little overwhelmed right now.
Yeah. It's a lot to process. It's more than I think we bargained for, and I am so happy that we chose not to just pick whatever big movie of the month. And listen, we love our Marvel movies, but this stays with you. This is a very special movie.
And I have to thank my wife, Erin, because she's the one that actually said, why don't you do JoJo Rabbit? I think because she wanted to see it. So like,
good
yeah,
call.
that's probably a good idea.
Good call. Wow. It's
So yeah, like I said, I am fully prepared to induct this into the
I will back
bucket
you.
list.
I will back you 100% on that.
Because
Absolutely.
it is, like you said, it is very rare that a movie like really affects you in that way.
Yeah, because you really didn't know where it was going.
Yeah.
After his mom died, he came back in and he stabbed Elsa because he blamed her if she wasn't hiding in the walls.
But, stabbed her.
Well, no, stabbed her in the shoulder. He
shoulder.
still stabbed her. And you're like, is this kid going to keep going?
Yeah, but you do see that the knife only went in like 2 centimeters.
I know,
so
but
it was,
still, and she was distraught. For all I know, she was going to go crawl underneath that thing and kill herself. Or he was going to come back from the war and find out that she took her own life. You know what I'm saying? Like, you didn't really know if this was going to have a happy ending. And, and like I said, Pan's Labyrinth was a movie that just kicked me down because you thought you were going to go see a certain type of movie and it becomes something completely different. And the way that movie ends is not what you were expecting.
Yeah. By
any means. And don't listen, that is a phenomenal movie. But it's a happy surprise.
It definitely. And I really like the fact, I don't know if this was intentional or not, but just the rabbit imagery made me think of Harvey, the Jimmy Stewart movie where he has an imaginary friend,
rabbit,
which is a giant rabbit.
I didn't even make that kind of connection, but
so
beautiful.
I don't know,
absolutely beautiful.
Yeah,
it really was. And like I said, when it rolls around on cable or whatever, we watch it again, that 45-degree camera angle really kind of made me sit up and take notice that he was really trying to say something here. And now he is Orthodox Jew, Taika.
Oh, he is? I didn't know that.
Yeah, something, I didn't write it down, but he is Jewish to a certain degree. He was kind of writing.
Yeah, and again, there, like we were saying before, there's a lot of vitriol out there from reviewers. It really splits people down the middle. Either, from what I've read, all the notices that this has gotten, reviewers have either absolutely loved it like we did or hated it.
I don't get it.
I read one review that gave it 0 stars.
What?
That 0 stars uses the Holocaust as as a superficial prop but again, they missed the point of the movie. This is from a kid's point of view. It's
right.
If it seems like it's trivial, it's from his eyes. That's
yes, correct.
Yeah.
Oh well.
I'll defend this to the end.
Hell yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay, JoJo Rabbit, if you have stuck with us this far, sorry for the spoilers, but still, you should see this.
Yes.
Regardless.
Yeah, because we're not doing it justice by any means.
In honor of today's subject matter, I pulled out an old drive-in ad from the 40s. So enjoy this. Let's go to the concession stand and come back and talk about our second World War II feature.
And now, before the next show starts, let's enjoy an intermission. You'll find our snack bar chock full of good things to eat and drink. Tasty, tempting hot dogs, thirst-quenching soft drinks, fresh, crunchy popcorn, a complete assortment of delicious candy, and a full line of cigarettes. You've plenty of time, so visit the snack bar now. A tasty treat will double your enjoyment of the show. For your convenience, we shall keep you informed of the remaining intermission time, 3 minutes before the next show starts. The next show will start in 2 minutes.
Okay, we're back, and we have threatened this for a long time.
You have threatened it for a long time.
I like to mention this movie on and off. If you've listened to our show repeatedly over the months, I was going to say over the years. It's only been a year and a half.
A year and a half.
I like to mention this next movie, 1941, Steven Spielberg, just because this is one of those movies that I saw many times as a kid. It stuck with me. Whether or not its time has been kind to it, we're going to discuss that right now. In some ways it has, in some ways it has not. 1941. So let's set the scene here. This is Steven Spielberg at his the beginning of his superstar director status.
He's coming off Jaws and Close Encounters.
So the world is with bated breath waiting to see what this guy is going to do next. And what he chose to do was take a script partly written by Bob Zemeckis, who was
Zemeckis and Bob Gale.
who had this script that they shopped to John Milius, who famous as the director of Conan the Barbarian. And so John Milius brought it to Steven Spielberg as a possibility. And Steven loved, and I watched this feature-length documentary on the DVD that I had about the making of this. So this went into great detail about how Steven came to this project. But he said he loved the insanity of it. And so a lot of its detractors say it's too loud, it's too over the top, but that's what attracted him to this project in the first place. And it does, there is some merit to that. There is a lot of people screaming in this movie.
The whole end credits are just the scenes of the actors screaming. I think that's all Lorraine Gray does.
That's all she does, yeah.
Is scream.
Well, she didn't get to scream in Jaws. She was very much homebound in Jaws.
That is true. But yeah, John Williams soundtrack.
Yeah.
Crazy.
A complete jingoistic soundtrack as well, which is so memorable because that's what Spielberg said in this documentary. He wanted people to be marching out of the theater.
Yeah, that's not what happened.
Oh, they marched out of the theater, all right, but
I didn't wait for the end credits. It's a 2.5 hour, which I was just like 2.5 hours.
Now, but this is the thing, Jeff. Now, if you're familiar with this movie, its original theatrical length was less than 2 hours. 2.5 hours is the extended director's cut, which has been available.
Oh, really?
Since it's been on video. Yes.
So what the hell was cut out of this? I'm going to tell you right now. I applaud you that you love this movie.
Oh, I do.
Oh, it was rough. I am not going to be kind to this movie. It just goes on for way too long. It is way too much. Jeff. I thought the acting was stilted. The dialogue is hokey. There's a couple scenes that, you're just like, I want this to happen.
But you see, this is what endears it to me. I know that it's too long. I know
that's
that the
fine.
dialogue is hokey.
We all talk about the fact that, I'm going to love a movie that is horrible, but because I have an emotional connection to it, I've probably only seen this movie once when it was on HBO at my grandfather's house, and the only scene that I remember taking away from it is the Ferris wheel at the end rolling.
I knew that you were going to say that.
That's like iconic. Yeah, it's indelible. The sexual innuendos probably went right over my head as a kid.
Yeah, the whole Tim Matheson, Nancy Allen subplot about him trying to get her on the plane.
All he's trying to do is nail her. The amount of people in this movie is crazy.
So now let's set the scene. So this movie takes place about a week after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And it's taking place in Hollywood, in Los Angeles, and there's a big USO dance contest. That's taking place for all these soldiers, sailors that are on leave for the night. And there's a lot of anti-Japanese paranoia going around California.
I'm thinking that at that time, how could there not be?
Especially on the West Coast.
All-time high. Yeah, sure.
Some of the fascinating things on the documentary was that this movie is based in fact, that there was a night. They don't know how it started, but somebody said that they saw an unmarked plane fly overhead. So all these anti-aircraft guns that were set up in California as defense emptied their rounds into the sky at nothing for 2 hours.
Yeah.
So that's where the idea from the movie came from, was that story.
Yeah, just think about how paranoid we were after 9/11.
Yeah, it's true.
So the same thing. All of a sudden, because
every airplane that you hear, you have to look up and think, what is that?
Yep. What's going to happen next?
And also, so this is the setup is that there's a wayward Japanese submarine in this movie that is off the coast of California, off of Los Angeles, and they want to blow up something honorable to go back to Japan to say that they've done something to strike a blow, to demoralize Americans.
Even more so.
Because they're feeling the swelling of Japanese pride after what they did to Pearl Harbor. So, and there's a Nazi officer on board played by Christopher Lee as well. So you see the acrimony between the Japanese and the German, like just in their characters. But besides that, you have all these characters. It's very much an ensemble piece in the vein of like an American Graffiti. You have all these subplots going on with all these different characters that kind of converge by the end of the movie.
Yeah, to me, this is kind of like the precursor to Mars Attacks. Let's get all these big name, get all these big name actors together and just do nothing with them.
You've got John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd.
Yeah, let's talk about that because they don't share a single scene together.
No.
This movie is so promoted with those two names, and obviously the following year they hit it big with the Blues Brothers, but they don't share a single scene together. There's one little throwaway at the end where he salutes, one's in the water and one's up on the submarine. They kind of just look at each other and salute. That was it. And this is the movie they left SNL for together. We can get into that.
So Belushi, since he's got top billing here, he plays Wild Bill Kelso, who really flies in and out of the movie, literally. Yeah. So he is like a demented lone wolf fighter pilot who is tracking an imaginary, we assume, Japanese plane.
Yeah, I don't know what he's doing. It's just,
or where he's from, or what squadron he's a part of, or anything. He's just flying over California.
He's a mess. He's an absolute mess. He just like stumbles and bumbles through this whole movie. And I guess if you're a Belushi fan, it was funny. They're supposed to be funny, because I didn't find him funny at all.
I agree with you here. I think that he is probably the least funny thing about this movie. He's borderline annoying to me, as a matter of fact. Then you get Dan Aykroyd, who is a sergeant with a platoon of guys, including John Candy, Mickey Rourke, and Treat Williams as Sitarsky. Who's the bad guy of the movie, is besides the Japanese, but Sitarsky is the bad guy.
So this had to have been one of John Candy's first movies.
Yeah, I think it is, because he had third tier credit at the end of the movies, but he had very little screen time or dialogue.
Right. And there's a lot of people in this. Like Penny Marshall was in there. Ned Beatty, yeah. I thought the one girl was Kate Capshaw too, but she might have been too young. He wasn't ready to be.
Yeah, no, he wasn't.
Wendy Jo Sperber, which wasn't Buddy's fan.
Yeah, and Diane Kay from 8 is Enough. She was Betty.
Slim Pickens. You even had the two guys who played Lenny and Squiggy.
Yeah, they were the gunmen. Yeah, they were the gunmen.
Yeah, but Robert Stack
as real-life General Stilwell. I heard that was based on reality as well, that there was one night where General Stilwell wanted to see Dumbo. It was widely publicized.
And I call bull on that, because Dumbo's only 64 minutes long, and like all this chaos is going on.
He's in there for a long time.
Yeah, he's in there for a very long time. And I'm just like, there's no way he's still watching that movie.
All this transpires in the space of one night, and one of the main plots is this USO dance-off. So we have a character by the name of Wally, played by Bobby DeCicco, who I don't think you've ever seen again in a movie.
He had a great zoot suit, though.
He did have a great zoot suit. So he's trying to get into the good graces of his on-off girlfriend, Betty, played by Diane Key from 8 is Enough. And she's going to be one of these USO girls at the dance. And her main function, along with Wendy Jo Sperber, is to dance with the servicemen.
Yeah, at one point, Ned Beatty takes her aside, and he's like, you're going to meet a lot of strange men far from home. Show them a good time. You think he's going to give her like this down and dirty speech about being a good girl. And he's like, show him a good time.
So Bobby DeCicco, he's Wally in the movie. So him and his buddy they're working at this diner, a short order cooks, and that's where you're introduced to Dan Aykroyd's squadron and Treat Williams. And they set up the running joke that Treat Williams hates eggs, because Bobby's character spills some egg on Treat Williams, and there's almost a fight in the diner. So there's bad blood between these two from the beginning of the movie. And then later on, it's Treat Williams' character that is of Sitarsky that's trying to get Betty, Wally's girlfriend.
It's nonstop. And by the end of it, he's basically raping her.
Which is a terrible scene.
It is just.
Which is so out of character of the rest of the movie, which is just like a lighthearted comedy. Wally and his buddy, they're dressed up in costume that they've gotten somehow off of soldiers. So they're able to get into this USO dance, and they spark a riot between the Army and the Navy. So there are the sailors and the servicemen.
And I will say, some of the choreography between the dance / fight was entertaining. It just went on for way too long.
And it's riotous. The whole thing is
it's like one sight gag after another.
Yeah.
Like it's unrelenting.
And it starts right off with the Jaws spoof.
Yes, that actually was cute with the actual actress who was consumed by the shark in the first movie.
Yep, and she gets stuck on top of the submarine's periscope naked, And you get that
Hollywood! Because they're obsessed. These Japanese want to go to Hollywood.
They want to blow up Hollywood. Yeah.
Which probably is smart if you're going to take out the Americas. Get rid of all of our propaganda machines.
Now that would demoralize America, I think.
Right?
In a huge
movies?
way.
All of our celebrities getting take out?
Yeah, and this is where Slim Pickens come. Now, what a name! What a name this guy has.
Hollywood.
Now, his name is Hollis Wood,
right.
and he's a Christmas tree farmer. Because this is like a Christmas movie.
It is a Christmas movie.
In December of 1941.
Yeah. And they send a bunch of descendants of ninja assassins on the ground.
And they're dressed up as Christmas trees.
Yeah.
And they're scratching their ass. And,
that was a great, I didn't make a note on that. The tree scratched his ass. But they see his truck and immediately think that they've found Hollywood. And they bring him back and they're like, where Hollywood? He goes, I'm here, I'm right here. No, where Hollywood? Dude, I'm sitting right in front of you. Yep.
And they're emptying his pockets. One of the jokes is that they're stuck in the water because their compass doesn't work. So they don't know where Hollywood is.
Yeah.
As they're emptying his pockets, he's got a little Cracker Jack compass in his pocket. And they look at it. They try to grab it. He realizes what they're going for, and he swallows it immediately. So what do? They bust out the prune juice. They
force it down his throat so he can
it down his throat so so he can go spend some time in the bathroom and get that compass out. And this is my favorite scene. As a kid, as a 9-year-old watching this on HBO, I thought this was the funniest thing ever committed to celluloid. Slim Pickens in the bathroom. You just hear him straining. And he drops his boots into the toilet. And you hear a big splash, and the Japanese listening outside are like, whoa. So they think they're going to get the compass. They rush into the bathroom, and Slim is like up like Spider-Man in the ceiling jumps down on top of them and then manages to escape in his underwear, the submarine. So the movie, again, it goes through the events of a day, and then finally towards the end of the movie, all these characters converge on this submarine.
It felt like a day. It felt like a solid day watching this.
Belushi's character sees the submarine as he's going over. Again, that Ferris wheel that you mentioned. There's these two characters. One is Murray Hamilton, who's the mayor from Jaws.
Yep.
Up there with Eddie Deason. Now, those who are familiar with the Polar Express, he's the kid, the voice that goes, Herbesheimers.
I thought he was like the Urkel. Yeah, that's basically what
he's got a little dummy.
Did I do that?
And so, again, Murray Hamilton's character is afraid of heights. So not only is he stuck in a Ferris wheel, but he's stuck next to the most annoying person on the face of the earth.
With a ventriloquist dummy.
Yeah, and Urkel is a great correlation. So they're stuck there, and their job is to, they're on the lookout for submarines. So they see the Japanese sub at one point, and that's when the Japanese see them because they're firing with their shotguns at the sub. And the Japanese see them and torpedo the Ferris wheel, which in a great special effects sequence, a marvel of miniatures.
Yes, I will say that there's some very impressive miniature work going on here, especially at those ends with the city streets and the planes.
The Ferris wheel rolls down the pier that's at the end of this amusement park and then goes into the water. But yeah, as you said, the plane sequence where Belushi is trying to shoot down Nancy Allen and Tim Matheson.
Right.
And the funny thing is he's spending the whole movie trying to get her into a plane and into her pants, that when he's actually flying the plane, that's the last thing he's thinking about because he's nervous.
Well, he kind of lied his way into even knowing how to fly a plane, so...
But Belushi thinks that they're Japanese. They shoot them down into the La Brea tar pits, which
I always want to go to.
Yeah, when we went to Hollywood, we were on the tour bus and we drove by it, but we didn't actually get off to look at it. Yeah. So all these goofy things, and then you've got the chase between at the end, as you mentioned, Treat Williams' character tries to rape Betty's character, and then she's saved by Wally. And there's a great rousing speech that Dan Aykroyd has when he stops the riot between the sailors and the army men.
Yeah, because he keeps saying, what did he say? I can't stand Americans fighting Americans.
Yeah.
Boy, he would hate 2019.
Yes, he would.
He would hate it.
But there's some great throwaway lines he's got. You think they got Mickey Mouse in Tokyo? But they do. Now they do.
Now they do. Yeah. Walt Disney sat up. He's like, that's a good idea.
This movie is loud. It's riotous. But for a 9-year-old back in 1979, 1980, whatever it was when I saw this thing, it hit all the right notes. And yeah, I look at it now. Half the stuff I don't find funny anymore. But I've seen this so many times.
Right,
I can almost lip sync to this movie. All the lines. And it's an achievement and a half, just the period piece aspect of this. But yeah, I still love it. A little bit too much screaming for my taste. I think they could have toned down on the screaming.
There's a lot of screaming. There's a lot of unnecessary fighting, dancing going on. It was like the Rydell High musical.
And the whole scene where Ned Beatty has that big gun, that anti-aircraft gun.
It's just, yeah.
And he's trying to remember what Dan Aykroyd said at the beginning of the movie when they plant it in his front yard, because he sees the sub as well, and he ends up destroying his house.
Spielberg. What is it with Spielberg destroying houses? A poltergeist, we had to destroy that house as well.
And at the very end scene, the house just slides off into the
right.
The ocean.
I'm going to tape this ceremonial Christmas wreath that humanity is restored, and he bangs it, and the whole house just rolls into the ocean.
Yeah. Now,
which was that was a practical effect.
Yeah, it was. And they said that the house was on rollers to help it along.
Well, yeah, it's obvious. There's no way a house would just slide off a foundation like that. But
right.
It's still pretty impressive.
But that was not written into the script, that they felt like that it kind of, the movie just petered out with all the characters in the front yard.
We need one more giant explosion.
We need one more explosion. And of course, as you said, that was a one-take thing, and they nailed it on that one take.
Wow.
The documentary, fascinating about this. So they were so hyped up and so excited about this project. And Steven Spielberg says that he had a lucky theater where he would screen his films for sneak preview in Texas. I think it was Dallas. Jaws was a runaway hit at this sneak preview. He did the Close Encounters preview at this theater, and he got a standing ovation at the end of Close Encounters. And
so
he said,
I can't lose.
I can't lose.
Right.
So at this theater, at this sneak preview, he said nobody laughed at any of the jokes. There was not one laugh during the entire movie. And he said that about halfway through, people were holding their hands over their ears because it was so loud.
Wow.
And he said that this was a co-production between Universal and Columbia, because he had done Jaws for Universal. He had done Close Encounters for Columbia. So they co-financed this third movie of his. And he said that the executives there wouldn't even talk to him after the screening. But he went on to say that, and a few of the talking heads in this documentary say that it has the reputation of being a bomb, but it was not. It was done for about $33 million was the budget, and it made about $96 million. So it did make back its budget more than double. So it did make money for the studios involved eventually. Apparently, it's much more highly regarded in Europe than it is in America. You know how they love Jerry Lewis over there.
Hey, lady!
They also love 1941, apparently.
Well, they can keep it.
Oh.
This may be one of his worst movies ever. It's all over the place. It's all over the place. It does not have that Spielberg feel to it.
But I think it does. I think it does.
I don't know. It didn't work for me.
Oh,
sorry.
So could you even give me like a favorite character or a favorite sequence in this movie?
No, because I didn't like Wendy Jo Sperber. I liked her character.
Stretch.
And all she wanted to do was get laid as well.
Yeah, she didn't care that guy was about to rape her best friend.
I know, right? Yeah. She goes, I found my man. Yeah.
I actually liked Dan Aykroyd's character. One of the biggest laughs, I think, is when he puts the stocking over his head with the oranges.
Oh, yeah.
He says, I'm a bug. I'm a bug.
There were moments, but just, yeah, I'm sorry, dude. This one is just not. And I knew going in that it was going to be a tough run, but I gave it a shot. I sat through the whole thing.
Yeah, it was Spielberg, right?
I sat through the whole thing, and I think I feel for that audience that probably had high expectations that Spielberg, what is he going to pull out of his magic hat? And then this is what he pulled out. And
probably people that may have been present at the Jaws and at the Close Encounters.
Yeah, sure. We're going for the trifecta here.
Yeah. So I will say this, that John Wayne and Charlton Heston agree with you. or agreed, past tense, with you. They were trying to cast their General Stilwell. And before they eventually went with Robert Stack, who Spielberg said was perfect because even physically, he looked exactly like General Stilwell. But he went to John Wayne first. And John
Which would
Wayne,
have been an interesting choice.
Yeah, and John Wayne had become friendly with Spielberg before this, actually. So he called up John Wayne, and Wayne's like, "Oh yeah, absolutely. Send me the script, and I'll read it." So he sent him the script, read it, called Spielberg, and said, "Don't do this movie."
If the Duke is telling you that something's not smart or right,
but the reasons he said because this makes a mockery of World War II. This is the most important war.
But that's,
you cannot
was it too
joke
soon?
about World War II.
I was gonna say too soon, right?
And then he went to Charlton Heston, who balked as well after he read the script. He's like, I am not going to make fun of World War II. So then he finally to Robert Stack, who took the role.
Who was more than willing to make fun of World War II.
But he said the whole thing about Stilwell was that he was supposed to be the voice of reason among all this insanity, which he kind of does pull off, except when he's watching Dumbo.
And he's wiping away his tears.
Yeah. But also for fans of his first feature, Duel, the gas station attendant who Belushi says fill her up to, that woman.
Oh, yeah.
It's the same gas station that he used in Duel and the same actress, the same gas station attendant. Also, for eagle-eyed viewers out there, those who think that guy, there's a quick shot during the USO riot. A sailor gets thrown through a plate glass window in an Italian restaurant, and there's a guy eating spaghetti. That's like for a split-second scene.
It was Belushi.
That's Belushi dressed up as Marlon Brando from The Godfather, eating spaghetti.
You dropped my meatball.
And also, I remember this was parodied in an episode of Animaniacs. Yakko, Wacko, and Dot are in a video store. They grab a copy of 1941 off the shelf and use it as a bomb. So they throw a copy of the tape and it blows up like a bomb would. So they acknowledge, and that's Spielberg producing it.
I was gonna say Spielberg was all over that. Yeah.
So he's poking fun at himself there.
Listen, how many movies a guy make? They all can't be perfect.
Yeah, and
although also, I'd be hard pressed to think of one that's worse.
Fun fact, Heavy Metal Magazine published a graphic novel adaptation of this back in 1979. Really? Yeah. So
did they show boobs? Because they sure didn't show them in this one.
No, I don't know. Well, maybe they did. It's heavy metal. Who knows?
I know, right? Otherwise, why buy it? That was what you bought heavy metal for.
Oh, and another fun fact. Christopher Lee's character, the Nazi captain who gets thrown off the Japanese sub at one point, he was trapped in the hole that the kids dug in the front yard of the house. That scene never even made it into the director's cut, but he was there among all the characters at the end of the movie in the front yard. And as a matter of fact, when there's that helicopter shot after the house falls and you see the helicopter circling around the yard and all the characters are there, they actually freeze framed it in the documentary. So you can see Christopher Lee standing there among everybody else.
Here.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, so he made it to the end.
He made it. Count Dooku.
I am afraid to ask you how many buckets you're going to give this.
I can't give it more than 2.5.
Dude, that's 2.5. 2.5. After all this you've said, you're going to give it as high as 2.5?
I will give it 2.5. Listen, I can't give it 0, and I can't give it 1. There, like you said, there's merits. It just didn't work for me.
You're not going to pull a mic and give it 0?
No,
buckets?
I can't do that. I'll never do that unless I just never saw the movie.
Okay, yeah.
No one sets out to make a bad movie, but this, like you said, if I saw the theatrical cut, the fact that there's it just goes on way too long, 2.5 hours. Look, that's a 1 point per hour.
Yeah, the theatrical cut is 45 minutes shorter than the director's cut. So
it's way too long. Like those fight sequences are just, like I said, it's just sight gag after sight gag, and it's weary. After a while, you're just kind of like, all right, it's tedious.
So, well, I would give it 3. You know, realize it's got its weaknesses, right? So, but still, I've got that emotional connection to it. So,
yes, correct.
It tickles me pink when I see it.
That's great.
And my favorite line, I haven't mentioned this yet, but my favorite line actually comes from John Candy. It might be the only line he has in the movie. But in the beginning, when Wally and Treat Williams are about to come to blows in the diner, Wally has a turkey leg, and John Candy yells, "Watch out, he's got a leg." So,
yes, come for the turkey leg, stay for the double entendres.
So there you have it, 1941. We can rest.
We can not talk about this ever again.
But with our confessional this week,
Confessionals.
we wanted to keep with the World War II theme. Now, are we going to go with that route?
I like the worst. I like it.
Okay.
Yeah, because I just watched it.
Yeah, you don't have to go too far to come to an answer for yours.
No,
right?
yeah, and it's funny because in looking up, most World War II movies are like these epic. Like you can't say anything bad about Saving Private Ryan. You can't. You know what I'm saying? Some of these movies, World War II, are just. Pearl Harbor would be the only other one I could think of, and that's I think not as bad as most people make it out to be.
No, it's very. Like Mike always said, give me the boom boom, and that has a lot of boom.
Oh, absolutely. And we got Liv Tyler in there, or what's her name?
Kate Beckinsale, right? Is that her?
No, wasn't it Aerosmith's daughter
In
Liv
Pearl
Tyler.
Harbor? In
Yeah.
Michael Bay's Pearl Harbor?
Yeah, because
No, it's got Beckinsale. It's got what's her name from Underworld, right? That's Kate Beckinsale.
All right, well, hold on. We're gonna have to look this up.
Look it up, baby, and you'll
Yeah.
see that I am correct.
Probably. Oh no, I know what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of friggin' Armageddon.
A classic World War II film, I might add.
I was mixing up my Affleck movies,
Okay.
because I just remember him with the little animal crackers climbing up her belly in the scene before they went into space. I was thinking,
No, it is
equating that with
Beckinsale. It's Beckinsale in
Kate
Pearl Harbor.
Beckinsale. Okay. Funny side story about Pearl Harbor, which was I stayed home with my daughter for the first year and a half after she was born. And that Memorial Day weekend, I had to get out of the house, and I saw 3 movies in a row that day. I went at first showing, and I saw The Mummy Returns with Brendan Fraser,
Okay.
and then I stayed and watched Shrek. And I've brought this up before. Never be a single dad sitting in a kid's movie, because you'll get about a 15-seat berth all around you. The kids would come in and moms would shuffle. Oh, come over here. Get away from that man. And then I stayed for Pearl Harbor. That's how I ended my day. 3 movies in one day.
And 2 of them are pretty lengthy movies as well.
Well, Pearl Harbor is pretty lengthy, yeah.
I would think that The Mummy was probably at least 2 hours too.
Yeah, probably about 2 hours too long. So, but Pearl Harbor, not as bad as people make it out to be. Yes. What do
For
you got?
mine, not every World War II movie has to have battles based. It could be just based in World War II. I was always extremely disappointed with this one, even as a kid. 1983, The Keep. Did you ever see this?
I don't even know what that is. No.
It is based on a book. I forget what the author's name is. F. Scott something or other. But
Fitzgerald?
No. This is a movie. It's about those darn Nazis chasing their supernatural stuff.
Oh, okay.
So they're in a castle in Romania, and they're trying to hold this castle as a key strategic point, guard this mountain pass, so the Allies can't get through. So they need
You shall not pass.
So they need to station at this castle, and they find an entity that it's kind of almost like King Tut in his tomb, but they release an entity from this castle. And in the book, it's more like a vampire type of a thing that starts to decimate the German soldiers. But in the movie, and the movie is directed by Michael Mann, who is a very accomplished director, but it just falls apart.
The Keep, it's called?
It's called The Keep. And in the movie, it's not like this suave vampire guy, but he's like this Gollum, like Hulk Hogan, Arnold Schwarzenegger, skeleton Terminator type thing. And it falls flat. I was reading that Michael Mann's first cut was 3.5 hours long.
Ouch.
Now, how he would expect to release that is just beyond me.
Yeah,
but of course,
cutting.
The studio came in, obviously wanted that cut down, so they cut it down to an incomprehensible story. They cut it down to about 90 minutes, but I guess they cut the heart out of the story as well.
You got that. Oh.
So the movie makes very little sense to watch. It's very disappointing. Its main villain is ridiculous looking, but it does have Ian McKellen. It's got Scott Glenn. It's got a bunch of name actors in this thing. Gabriel Byrne is in it.
They never released a director's cut?
I don't think so. No. But yeah, I was so disappointed with that as a kid. As a 12, 13-year-old, whatever I was.
Well, especially if you were committed to the source material.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you go in with expectations.
Yeah, and I always used to, because this came out the same year as Krull did, and because they were 2K movies, I used to kind of interchange them in my memory. So
Krull.
When I was thinking of this confessional, I was thinking, oh, Krull. Wait, that's not a World War II movie.
That's a World War
Oh,
II.
The Keep. That's the one. The Keep. Yeah.
Krull.
So, yeah, one day we'll do Krull, right? If we go
Sure.
long enough.
Yeah. That was a drive-in.
That definitely was a
I
drive.
saw
I saw that
in the drive-in. Yeah.
I saw it at the drive-in.
I couldn't tell you what it was paired up with, though. I wonder if I could look that up.
Yeah, you probably could. You go into the microfiche in your library, and you can go to the newspaper.
Yeah, but it'd have to be the newspaper back home. Yes.
But next week, let's talk about what our offering is. We're going back to the theater.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about Knives Out.
That actually looks very intriguing.
It does. Now, Rian Johnson is getting a lot of flack, and he has been for the past couple of years, for his take on Star Wars and what he did with The Last Jedi. So let's see if he can redeem himself with Knives Out. And to pair Knives Out, we decided to go deep. I didn't even remember this until Jeff brought it up, and it's one of those HBOs, of those HBO specials.
That was a staple. 1976, I'm going to guess, somewhere in there.
So we wanted to go that murder mystery, that would keep that same theme as Knives Out, so we're going Murder by Death.
Yes, one of my favorite movies. That's probably a movie I could, when I see it again, I'll remember the dialogue, because that was, every time it was on, I think I watched it as a kid.
Yeah. And being a PG, it was on like at all times of day.
Yeah, and it was just very tongue-in-cheek spoof of the murder mystery kind of stuff.
So there you have it. Next week, come on back.
I'm actually excited.
Yeah.
So,
and then a couple episodes after that, we're going to get into the Christmas season. So stay tuned in the next month or so.
That's right. All right, kids. Thank you very much for listening.
Yep. Thanks,
Jim, always a pleasure.
Yes, it is.
All right. Until next time. I would.
Herbishimus.